Slam Time, Wrestle Talk with Attitude, hosted by yours truly, Big Rob.
Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's your man, Big Rob. As always, a ton to talk about in the world of professional wrestling. Coming out of one of the best wrestling weekends of the year, Memorial Day weekend, whether it's Saturday night's main event, AEW Double or Nothing, NXT Battleground, or last night's Monday Night Raw. We have a ton to talk about. Let's hang out, let's talk, let's go. All right, guys, what's going on? First of all, I hope everyone had a great Memorial Day weekend with friends and family. Man, down here on the Jersey Shore, the weather was kind of rough. A lot of rain. Memorial Day, which was Monday, was actually really nice. But other than that, man, it was the perfect weekend to hang out and watch professional wrestling. Doesn't get much better, man. Saturday night with Saturday night's main event. Sunday night, AEW Double or Nothing, NXT Battleground. And then, of course, Monday Night Raw. A lot there to talk about. But, as a pro wrestling fan, I live for weekends like this. I don't know how my wife feels having to watch wrestling every single day, but she loves it just as much as I do. But yeah, hope everyone had a great weekend with friends and family. Thank you to the men and women who served this country and continue to serve this country. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts because freedom isn't free, and without you guys, we're not where we're at. So with that, let's get into, professional wrestling, baby. All right, guys, first thing I want to talk about just to get it out of the way is AEW Double or Nothing. So a little backstory. So I was a massive fan of AEW. I actually attended the third show, the third Dynamite in Philadelphia at the Licoris Center back in October of, 2019. My wife and I sat front row. Great show. Had a great time. The energy was palpable in that building. Over the last year or so, I haven't watched AEW that much just because the lack of continuity and the storylines, I just wasn't a fan of. I thought, there wasn't much substance there outside of great wrestling matches. And I watched pro wrestling for stories. So a little bit about AEW Double or Nothing because I decided to tune in on Sunday night. I know I'll probably get negative reaction from this, but I think the first thing that comes to mind while watching Double or Nothing the other night was way too many matches on the card. There was times where it felt like a Dynamite with some random matches thrown together. But with that, I will have to give AEW some credit. There were some great, wrestling matches, stories. I thought the Anarchy in Arena, I thought was pretty awesome. I think, them playing Let the Bodies Hit the Floor by Drowning Pool, awesome. Really awesome. It actually reminded me of watching New Jack and Mufasa back in ECW. The gangsters, go to battle with their theme music playing. It just had that vibe to it. It had that awesome vibe to it. So I thought that was really awesome on AEW's part, and I thought them playing that song throughout the whole match just added a layer to the whole match. You had violence in the match. You had, the song Let the Bodies Hit the Floor. Awesome stuff. So kudos to them for changing it up, doing something different. I thought that was excellent. I think outside of Anarchy in the Arena, I think the main event between Hangman Adam Page and Will Ospreay was a phenomenal wrestling match. I thought it told a great story. Both of those guys can work their butts off. Will Ospreay, man, that is a guy that you build your company around. That opening, before he came out, the Hangman one was great, but the opening of Will Ospreay talking and kind of reading a script, I thought that was phenomenal. That guy's the total package, man. He reminds me of a modern day Shawn Michaels with a little more athletic ability. Great professional wrestling. With that, my one critique of AEW, and I've had this critique for a while. What WWE has been doing for the last 2 years is taking a core group of talent and showcasing them and intermingling all their stories, connecting dots between certain wrestlers. You could build a feud with this guy and this guy, or this guy and this guy, because somewhere along the journey in the last 2 years their path had crossed. I would love to see AEW, take guys like Moxley, Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega, MJF, Swerve Strickland. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, Samoa Joe, and build your show around that group of guys. I just feel like there's too many guys all over the show that, as a fan, you can't get emotionally invested in. And that's how you build your product. That's how you draw new fans. That's how you create new fans. You get people invested in those superstars or professional wrestlers. So I would really love to see Tony Khan take a smaller group of guys, build stories with those guys, have cross pathing stories between the group of them, and build your pay-per-views, with those guys. I think we can cut down from 9-10 matches to 6-7 matches. Allow those guys to tell greater stories in the ring and really build up that core roster. I've been saying that for years. Find a handful of heels, find a handful of baby faces, showcase them on your show, let the audience get invested in those characters, and continue to grow. I think that's what they need to do moving forward to continue to build their fan base. Because at the end of the day, hey, I'm a WWE mark. I've been a fan of the WWE since 1990, 1989. They'll always be my number one, but there is most certainly room for a number two promotion. And I would love to see AEW be that, but they just need a little more consistency and showcase the guys that are the best wrestlers on their roster. Will Ospreay, Jon Moxley, Samoa Joe, Kenny Omega, MJF. Build the show around those guys, man. I don't need to be watching, some guy I've never heard of do 15 backflips. I know that's great professional wrestling, but with that core group of guys, you got to build stories, get people invested. They do that, they shoot for the stars. Now, please, everybody on the internet, don't jump on me. I know AEW fans can sometimes get, a little jumpy. I'm the same way, man. I critique WWE and what I think they should do as a fan of 35 years. It's not just AEW, but I would love to see them have a little more consistency in showcasing their stars. All right, guys, so moving into the WWE and NXT. Big weekend for them. Had shows Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. NXT. So Sunday night, they had Battleground, which was opposing Double or Nothing. My biggest takeaway from the show is that, man, Stephanie McCoy, she's the biggest star in that brand NXT. I do not see her losing that title all year long. I see her holding on to that till maybe NXT TakeOver before Mania next year, wherever Mania is, Las Vegas or whatever. The girl is phenomenal, absolute stud. Over with the crowd, phenomenal in ring, can tell a story in ring, can work her butt off. Keep building up contenders, having her knock them down. She should be, the most dominant female women's champion in, NXT history when it's all said and done. She had a great match with Jordynne Grace. I think you can get more mileage out of that. I think that's a money feud. I think that's a money program. I hope, Sunday wasn't a blow-off. But, we do have Stephanie McCoy, interacting with the AAA ladies. So we'll see how that plays out moving forward. But yes, she's the star of that show. The women's division, man, in NXT, phenomenal. I mean, that opener with Sal Ruka was great. Her finishing maneuver it may be the best in professional wrestling today. My concern is, though, as she gets older and a little less athletic, is she still going to be able to hit that on a consistent basis? Because a move like that ain't easy. But yeah, Stephanie McCoy, star of NXT. Now, the most interesting thing to me, Sunday night was the crossover between Trick Williams versus the TNA champion Joe Hendry. I absolutely love what these two promotions are doing. I love that, WWE's open for business. I think they're really doing a great service for TNA, putting them on the map. We need pro wrestling to thrive, whether it's AEW, TNA, NXT, WWE. WWE, to me, is really taking over the role of the NWA. They're having all these sub-promotions under the umbrella of WWE, intermingling. Great stuff. And I hope we see more of that moving forward. But back to the match. So Trick Williams defeat Joe Trick Williams defeated Joe Hendry and became the new TNA champion. Phenomenal stuff. You now have an NXT guy holding the TNA title. You're going to bring those crossover fans over to their TV show. Obviously, you got to showcase the TNA title on their TV show. So WWE, I expect them to promote this show. They want to build Trick Williams into a big star. But what has my attention is Mike Santana with TNA. This guy has busted his butt for years to get to a point where he can be a top guy. To me, a program between Trick Williams, an NXT superstar who is now the TNA champion, going against a guy like Mike Santana, is great business. And I think we can get a great story out of those two. And I think that's how you elevate TNA. Joe Hendry did a great job with that title. He's a major player on that show. But to me, he is more of a supplemental piece as opposed to a guy that's going to take the title and run with it. I think a guy like Mike Santana, you build a show around him. If I'm TNA, he just has that cool factor. I call him Cool Mike Santana. I think that's a great name for him. So I'm really interested to see how they, interact moving forward. All right, so moving on from AEW and NXT. We moved to WWE and what they had going on this weekend. They had a lot going on, whether it be Saturday night's main event or, of course, last night with Monday Night Raw. The one thing I found interesting on Saturday, at the opening of the show, they had a phenomenal video package of showing the history of Saturday night's main event. Showing newer stars, showing older stars. Know who wasn't shown at all in that package? The man himself, Hulk Hogan. I feel like WWE is trying to kind of take a step back a little bit from him, trying to put some space between him and the company. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting. Nothing, big newsworthy out of that, but he wasn't in any of the package. Let me know if you guys noticed that as well. But with that, Saturday night's main event, man, I know there was a lot of backlash online where, there was a lot of commercials. There was not as much wrestling maybe as people would have liked. Guys, at the end of the day, this is a network show on NBC. NBC calls the shots on that. It's a glorified house show with the hope that you're going to move storylines across, move them, push them further down the road. So I think a lot of fans were looking at it as the wrong way. You're not going to get pay-per-view quality matchups where you're getting a 20-minute matchup of great professional wrestling. Everything that's done on Saturday night's main event is to advance, is to build stories. With the parameters of the time frames, the parameters with the commercials that they need to get in on national TV, you're just not going to get a full wrestling match or a full story. But with that, there was a ton that came out of that. I think the biggest thing and the best thing, and the thing that we're most excited about is the third man, with Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker and Paul Heyman. The return of Bronson Reed. Phenomenal. I thought the guy, still a big guy, but I thought he looked like he slimmed down a little bit. I thought it looked like he put the muscle, he went to work in the workshop, put some muscle on. I think he adds a great layer to that group. And we'll get into that a little bit more as we discuss Monday Night Raw. But essentially, Bronson Reed, reappeared, speared or splashed CM Punk through, the announce area. And then went on to beat the holy crap out of CM Punk. I was actually watching the show. I was like, oh, man, I hope Punk's not hurt here. Because he kind of took a beating at the end there. But, man, talk about a force moving forward here. Paul Heyman, Bronson Reed, Braun Breaker, Seth Rollins. I love what they're doing here. But we'll discuss that a little more when we start talking about Monday Night Raw here and what the future may look like for that group moving forward into the year. Another thing from Saturday night's main event. So I know during the week last week there was a big push and kind of a backlash online. Hey, where are the women? I agree, but the one thing I've always said about professional wrestling, if you want to be showcased, you need to maximize your minutes on TV, and you need to give the promoter, WWE, the booker, whoever, you need to give them reason to put you on the card. The Women's United States Championship match. We need to have a conversation. I've been a big fan of Zelina Vega. But the showing the other night was not good, guys. Chelsea Green is a phenomenal worker, one of the most entertaining people on the roster. Have no issue with her doing the job, taking the pin. That's her role in the company, and I think that will be her role moving forward. But we need to get that belt off of Zelina Vega. She just can't seem to manage a fan reaction. The fans are not invested in her. I think, the view on her may be a little skewed just because she had that great reaction in Puerto Rico, which is her home, country of Puerto Rico. But, you look at the division, the WWE Women's Division, and to me, that title should be on Julia. I think that's where we need to get it. That match was forced onto the show on Saturday night, the Chelsea Green-Vega match. Very sloppy, massive botch. And I hate saying botches because these guys and girls are in the ring busting their butt. But it just looked fake. It looked slow. It didn't look good, man. And that's my biggest problem with women's professional wrestling. Sometimes it just doesn't look believable to me. And if you have somebody watching Saturday night's main event on network TV and they're not a casual or a normal WWE watcher, they're watching that and they're saying to themselves, what am I watching here? We need the most viable contenders or people to hold those titles. And I think it's only a matter of time before Julia should be holding that United States Championship. The complete opposite for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. We have a great story going with Becky Lynch and Lyra Vicaria. We'll discuss that when we discuss Monday Night Raw. But yeah, I think we need to get that belt off of Zelina Vega, get it over to Julia, and take that belt from here to here. Up next, we have my favorite part of the show, which was Drew McIntyre versus Damian Priest inside a steel cage match with Jesse the Body Ventura on commentary. First, the match. I thought the match was very good for a TV match. Obviously, you can't expect them to get color. They're on NBC. They're on national TV. Take it, for what it was. It was a great pro wrestling match inside a steel cage. I think the ending with the concerto was to write Drew McIntyre off TV. The guy's, been a workhorse for them. He's been the MVP since the pandemic. The guy's busted his butt. Everything he's involved in, great storytelling, great promos. He can go in the ring 100%. Drew McIntyre, he deserves a long run with the World Heavyweight title whenever, that, fits into, what their storylines are. But yeah, Drew McIntyre, he deserves all the props and credit. Want to see him, get off TV for a little bit, get healthy, and get him back in time for SummerSlam. My favorite part of the whole entire show was Jesse the Body Ventura on commentary. Now, I'll say this. A lot of newer fans that just started watching wrestling, from 2000 on or 2010 on, they don't understand what a heel announcer is supposed to bring to the table. I saw people saying, he was burying Damian Priest walking out of the cage. He was talking over Lillian Garcia. That's what a heel commentator does. Now, we have guys like Wade Barrett who do a good job playing the heel, but the one issue I have is a lot of times when there's a feel-good moment or something, bigger than wrestling, they kind of break kayfabe and get into this realist mode where they're like, you know what? I'm a heel announcer, but I'm happy for, Pro Wrestler A to win the title. This was a great moment. I feel great for that guy. No, a heel announcer, a true heel announcer, Bobby the Brain Heenan, Jesse the Body Ventura, those guys will always trash the babyface, no matter if it's a feel-good moment, if it's a moment where, the fans are standing on their feet. I love the fact that Jesse the Body Ventura trashed Damian Priest for simply walking out of the cage. What a loser. He took the easy way out. Man, pro wrestling. And it made me think, we're severely lacking great heel wrestlers and commentators. And a guy that I think would be really good in that role moving forward, in the mold of a Jesse the Body Ventura or a Bobby the Brain Heenan, would be The Miz. I think you transition him and you have him as your top heel announcer. I think he would do a great job at that. I just want to see a guy that remains a heel commentator through everything. I don't care if this moment feels bigger than pro wrestling. I want him to trash it. I want him to trash the babyface. I want to say that, I want to hear him say that, this guy doesn't deserve the title victory. Doesn't care about Cody Rhodes finishing his story. I want him to trash that whole story. So I loved it. I love Jesse the Body Ventura, and I really wish they'd have him on the mic more. But that was my favorite part of the show. Before we get to the end of Saturday night's main event here, I have to touch on John Cena and Ron Cena. Essentially a squash match. I know R-Truth did get, some offense in, but, essentially it was John Cena squashing him. And that was the build-up at the end of the show for John Cena to get involved in the Logan Paul Jey Uso match. We saw the return of Cody Rhodes. Listen, I don't want to hear that people are tired of Cody Rhodes. I don't want to hear that he's not as over as he was. When that music hit at the end of the show and he cut that promo, the fans were standing on their feet. They were going crazy. Cody Rhodes is the number one babyface in that company, and he will remain that. I'm just happy, man, that, we're getting Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes versus John Cena and Logan Paul. We have 4 wrestlers. Logan Paul, great professional wrestler. Doesn't matter how you feel about him. He's a great professional wrestler. That's going to be, one of the main events at Money in the Bank. I'm just glad that Travis Scott is not involved in that. I do not want to see him in a wrestling match. I think that will be a quality, great professional wrestling match with advancing Cody Rhodes and John Cena towards SummerSlam. Who knows? I feel like, we're going to get another round here of filler between Logan Paul and Jey Uso. Uso had to help. Cena got involved in the match, so there's still more meat on the bone with Jey Uso, Logan Paul. Very good filler match. Say what you want about Logan Paul. He brings attention to the company. That could be the beginning half of the summer, transitioning into, where I see Jey Uso at SummerSlam against Seth Rollins. We'll talk about that. And then John Cena and Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship at SummerSlam. And that's when, John Cena eventually turns back into the John Cena that we all know and love. But that was Saturday night's main event. I took it for what it was. I loved having a network television event. Brought me back to being a child watching Saturday night's main event. And take it for what it is. No reason to be outraged, guys. All right, so moving into Monday Night Raw. A lot going on there. Before I get into, the obvious with, the new super group, CM Punk, everybody involved, I want to talk about the Women's Intercontinental Championship feud between Becky Lynch and Lyra Valkyria. I don't know. Every time I try to say her name in a sentence, I mess it up. So I got to slow down. Sorry, I'm from New Jersey. I talk fast. I've been a massive Becky Lynch hater for years, but I think she's doing a really good job of getting Lyra over. And I think as we progress week to week to week here, I think Lyra is looking more of a viable champion than, initially when she won the title. She seems more comfortable on the mic. Becky Lynch, to me, is still terrible on the mic. But I think we're moving to a point here where Becky Lynch is, told Lyra that, she's going to challenge for that title again. And if she doesn't win, she will never challenge Lyra for that belt again. So, to me, what I see happening moving forward, whether it's Money in the Bank or the show in Saudi Arabia, I think it's that Money in the Bank. I can't remember if that was confirmed last night on the Raw, but I think Becky Lynch wins the title from Lyra, and I think that builds into a massive match at SummerSlam down the road. And then there is where you crown Lyra as the undisputed Intercontinental Championship. You get her over after a long program throughout the summer with Becky Lynch. And that's what I'd like to see these girls in the Four Horsewomen do. I got Charlotte Flair, obviously a star, obviously a great professional wrestler. Maybe the greatest women's professional wrestler of all time. Start giving back, build these girls up. You can still win championships. Like, we need something with the U.S. title on SmackDown. I would love to see this same story, but with Julia winning the U.S. title and then getting into a program with Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair takes the belt off of her, and we just kind of do the same thing we're doing with Lyra and Becky. That's how you build stars. That's how you get people invested in these new superstars that are on TV. Lyra Valkyria and Julia. And also you have Roxanne Perez, who, has this whole story with the Judgment Day. But I do think Becky's doing a great job here of elevating Lyra and getting her to the next level, which is super important because I think Lyra, I think she has the potential to be a massive babyface. She has Ricky Steamboat babyface written all over her, in my opinion. And lastly, guys, the biggest news coming out of the weekend, out of all the pro wrestling shows that went on, was the addition of Bronson Reed to the super group of Paul Heyman, Braun Breaker, and Seth Rollins. So we don't have a name yet, but I'm going to steal Seth Rollins' name and say I'm a visionary. So Monday Night Raw opens up last night. We have the great job by Paul Heyman putting over the monsters known as Braun Breaker, who was going to main event WrestleMania after WrestleMania after WrestleMania. We have him putting over Bronson Reed and how he was a man that destroyed Seth Rollins, something that Roman Reigns could not do. I love how no matter what they're doing, Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns are always tied together. But Paul Heyman putting those two guys over makes them feel important, makes them feel like the biggest, guys on the roster, the baddest guys on the roster, and they're aligned with the visionary known as Seth Rollins. Love this group for Seth Rollins. I think he can really tap into that visionary of being a manipulator, almost like a mob boss, sort of. I mean, you saw him running around Monday Night Raw last week making deals with guys. Hey. And now he has his attack dog in Braun Breaker and his massive heater in Bronson Reed. So before we get into what I think Seth Rollins' future is here in the next year, I think moving forward, I think we're going to get a program between Bronson Reed and CM Punk. I think that's great for CM Punk, allows him to work from underneath against this monster. I think ultimately, they're going to have a match possibly at Money in the Bank, where I think Punk may actually do the honors for Bronson Reed and get taken out by Bronson Reed. Maybe Punk's not at the show in Saudi Arabia. That's a way to write him off. I don't know if Punk still has beef with, going to Saudi or not. But that seems like, the perfect situation to have a match between Bronson Reed and CM Punk and write him off TV until they come back from Saudi Arabia. With that said, to me, I think it's very clear. Seth Rollins kept using the word power over and over again in his promo last night. Winning the Money in the Bank contract gives him power. What did he do last night? He qualified for the Money in the Bank. He beat Sami Zayn and he beat Finn Balor to qualify for the Money in the Bank. So I think we're moving towards a situation here where Seth Rollins wins the Money in the Bank briefcase. I think he ends up taking that title off of Jey Uso at SummerSlam because I think, I know Jey Uso has, the situation with Gunther. I think somehow Goldberg gets involved with that. He costs, Gunther the match. That's the story there. Jey Uso moves on to Seth Rollins. I think Seth Rollins wins the championship at SummerSlam. And I think we start the program, guys. Listen to me. To the main event of WrestleMania, Night 1, between Sami Zayn and Seth Rollins. They're putting out the feelers. Sami Zayn with his passionate promos, how he wants to be World Heavyweight Champion. He's been a team player. I almost feel like, the conversation was, hey, Sami, you're not on WrestleMania 41 this year because you have bigger things in the future at WrestleMania 42 next year. We get Sami Zayn walking out to the ring last night on Monday Night Raw. Gets stopped by the man Karrion Kross, who should be all over TV. He should be pushed to the moon. Get him in that Intercontinental title, whatever. But he stops Sami Zayn and says, hey, Sami, you're never going to be World Heavyweight Champion. Planting seeds. Sami Zayn is the perfect guy to go up against this super group of Bronson Reed, Braun Breaker, and Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman. Massive babyface that needs a fight from underneath. Gets beat down by Braun Breaker, by Bronson Reed. Keeps coming back. Develops this hatred for Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins becomes champion at SummerSlam. We move through the fall. Sami Zayn is still interacting with Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. We get to the point of the Royal Rumble next year. Sami Zayn, underdog, wins the Royal Rumble. And now we're headed directly towards WrestleMania with a year-long story between Sami Zayn and Seth Rollins. This year, WrestleMania 41, we ended, night 2 with Cena winning, the heel champion, closing the show at WrestleMania. Next year, at WrestleMania 42, we get that feel-good moment of Sami Zayn reaching the mountaintop. So keep waiting for all these little tidbits throughout the year. Sami Zayn's going to be that guy. I'm telling you. He's not going to win Money in the Bank. Seth Rollins is going to win Money in the Bank. He's going to take the title from Jey Uso at SummerSlam. He's going to move throughout the fall, continuing a feud with Jey Uso, just for some filler. And then as we move into WrestleMania season, Sami Zayn's going to overcome all the odds. I would even have Sami Zayn enter the Royal Rumble at number 1. Win the Royal Rumble match. It says, Seth Rollins, this has been a year long. I've known you for 20 years. I'm taking your title at WrestleMania. Talk about a phenomenal story. Sami Zayn has earned this through his work in the Bloodline. You see, the tidbits. Hey, Killer Karrion Kross. Sami, you're never going to be world champion. It's going to happen. We're on the road to WrestleMania already, and a lot of fans don't even realize it. But if you can see the long-term booking, they're setting Sami Zayn up for have that moment at WrestleMania in a classic babyface reaching the mountaintop. So, with that, guys, if you're still here hanging out, I appreciate it. This is my 3rd episode of Slam Time, Wrestle Talk with Attitude. Subscribe on YouTube. Like me on, like my page on X, Twitter, at BigRobNJ. And hey, guys, have a great day.
Slam Time, Wrestle Talk with Attitude.